What's up, everyone? My name is Brian. Welcome back to Steven's channel here, where he talks about building wealth with multifamily real estate. I've joined Steven's mentorship. I want to encourage you to do that too, because I'm using it to just kind of accelerate my timeline. I'm a Bitcoin guy and a single family rentals guy, but I've caught the multifamily bug a lot from Steven's own channel. And so he's been just gracious enough to kind of like do some live coaching here. And so I have some questions today just about creative financing. But if you get value out of this, like, definitely, like, having mentors, everyone is right about that. So if you're on the internet searching for good information, get over the hump of just being willing to like reach out one-on-one and get mentors, because that will accelerate your path. Everyone that says that is absolutely correct. And so get over that and do that if you just enjoy, you're like me and you like watching YouTube. So yeah, that's Steven's the man. He's been there, does the W-2 thing, does the apartment building thing. And so yeah, I like talking to him.
Cool, Brian. Thank you for the kind intro. I need you to follow me around everywhere I walk.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, leadership has a bad rap, but it's just like, if you can accelerate your own learning curve, like, why not? And, I work in healthcare, and it's very common, like, when you're like a second year resident, you're learning from a first year, or you're teaching a first year resident, and you're learning from a third year resident. So you're just learning from somebody who's one step ahead of you. And it comes off less intimidating because if you follow like the Grant Cardones, they own like 10,000 units, they syndicate, they raise money, automatically you're like, it's impossible. But if you could just like know my journey, it's like, okay, it's like, seems very attainable, right? It's not too far reaching out of there to hit my 50 units.
Exactly. And bouncing right off of that, like an example of this past week, I talked to some other so I'm in Southern California. At the price point that I'm at, I'm thinking about like a $1 to $1.3 million, like 5 to 6 unit building in LA County is what my current buy box in my brain is. And I've been out there networking, sending out emails, getting in touch with brokers. And I actually interviewed 2 buy-side brokers in the last like 14 days or since we last recorded. And what's interesting about that is, yes, are they helping you, right? It's like, obviously a buy-side broker could help you and like teach you how to do it right and give you perspective on the local market. Absolutely. But what's interesting about kind of the conversations we're able to have and the way you're able to like open my mind, both of them were kind of just like, yeah, there are creative finance deals out there. Like, yeah, that is a thing, but it's kind of just like a needle in a haystack. And like, really, and they're just kind of like, well, how much money do you have to put down? Like, how much money do you have to put down? And I'm kind of like, well, to be honest, like, again, I do other investments. We've got our single family homes. I'm starting to dip my toe into this, but I'm not like, and it's right there when you're like, oh, but it doesn't have to happen immediately. They immediately get like less interested. So that's like the trigger word. Like, so you're constantly trying to show like ready to go. But then I'm also trying to, again, just like get to know them. If they're going to be a consultant and a like, not employee, but like if they're going to be a consultant and part of your team, you got to be like honest. I'm like, look, if something was to happen inside 2025, probably have like $100,000. If something was to happen in 2026, then I'm going to like take care of, like, we're building a swimming pool. We're doing like classic other life stuff, right? Like everyone else in your life isn't like, oh, let's buy the next apartment building. So you're like working on your own personal bucket. So the fact that they were just kind of like, oh, like you really need like 30 to 40% down. It was just kind of like, that's such a hard, like, part of what I like about real estate is the amount of leverage you can get. And part of what I'm learning is just kind of more, how does the leverage work in the commercial space is where my gap is like still being filled. Is like a residential home. The number one thing that like helped me buy our single family homes first was realizing like, you don't have to put 20% down.
Yes.
You don't have to put 10% down. Like, if you understand the value of having a high paying W-2 is you're able to get financing, period. Like, learn how to, like, in a different life, I would want to go be a mortgage broker because that math just is interesting. Like, running the numbers and like opening people's mind is so interesting. Your whole thing of the like three types of offers and how it's like a seesaw. The price can be anything. The price can be anything, guys. Like, it can be whatever you want. And I have an example of that from this week too. But I thought that the buy-side brokers would be more accustomed to that, but I was surprised that it didn't feel like they were. And so that was my first thing today was like, what's your take on buy-side brokers?
Yeah, so when I first started my multifamily career, like the first thing you do is reach out to brokers, right? They're accessible. You can go on LoopNet, you can go on Crexy, you can go on Zillow, you can find their number. And that's where you start. So, and to your point, I was new myself. So coming in new, you assume that these brokers know more than you. They can teach you, they can guide you. But you kind of quickly find out after talking to like 4 or 5 brokers that they just want the conventional way of selling real estate. And even if I tell them the math, so commercial real estate, it's literally math. It's literally net operating income divided by the cap rate. Okay, you can argue the NOI here and there, give and take,
Yeah.
right? But the cap rate, you can even argue that a little bit too. But if you just do the basic math, you know what the value is. So to me, it just throws me off when you see properties listed for $2 million, for example, and if you do the NOI divide by the market cap rate, it's like 1.5. So why is
Mm-hmm.
there a $500,000 discrepancy? And a lot of times the broker just says whatever to get the listing, appease the seller, and they're just the middleman. They have no control in the deal. But what makes a good broker is they have to set realistic expectations. Like, hey, you can list your property at $2 million, but you're only gonna get people pitching you creative offers. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you get lucky, you get a whale. Maybe someone's doing a huge 1031 exchange, but those are far and few. So
Yeah.
that's why like brokers, I say they make you broke because they just don't think like an investor because they don't own real estate themselves. I hate to say it, but a lot of the brokers, even real estate agents, they don't own real estate themselves. So for me, the lender is always the guy on your team because they're the ones putting in most of the money and they will tell you the cold hard truth, right? Like, hey, like we could lend you at this price, but you're going to put this much down. But what you said earlier is leverage. And that's why I like real estate. It's leverage. You can put 3.5% down for single family homes. You can put zero down potentially if you get creative. So for me, in my opinion, um, I've been talking to brokers recently as well because I don't want to do my direct mail campaign. I'm just trying to keep my costs lower because cost money to send out direct mail. I'm not super serious, but I still want to keep my toes in the market, and who knows, I might land a deal without much
Mm-hmm.
effort. So I literally went on Zillow, right? And then you just can filter out apartments, and minimum price $500,000, max is like 3 million for me. And I came across like this one broker who had 6 listings, all 20 to about 40 units. And
Wow.
that's my sweet spot because I know that it's a mom and pop owner. I know that it might be owned free and clear. And, I'm comfortable with that. I own a 26 unit and a 20 unit. So literally, text the broker like, hey, send me the T12, send me the rent roll, and I'll get this to my lender to give you a conventional offer, right?
I wanted to ask you this last time. Why do you
Yeah.
say T12 in rent roll instead of the OM? Why do you go straight for that?
Yeah, the OM is just like a marketing piece of marketing, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So like
Yeah.
it's pretty much useless in my mind. Like I just want to get straight to the numbers, right? Like in the T12 and the rent roll, that's what the lender will ask for. So like just cut the crap, right? It's just like I'm sure you've seen that like 30, 50 page OM. That means nothing. All I care about is your T12 and your rent roll, and does it make sense? So like, I don't care about the demographics. I already know why I'm targeting this market, right?
Yep.
So like for me, I just go straight cut to the chase, and it makes it more serious. Like I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. And it's funny, this broker, I made an offer prior on another 8 unit that he owned, 300K less than what he wanted. And it was funny. He had 5 more listings, and I reached out again. I texted him, and he was all like, I was like, hey, like, can you send me the T12 and the rent roll? And he was just like, well, if you submit me an offer like last time, don't waste your time. And at first I was kind of like taken aback, but I was like, you know what? This guy cuts to the chase. Let's not
Yeah.
waste each other's time.
Yeah.
Right. So I just said, hey, I have this based on NOI cap rate. I have this at 1.7, 1.6. You want 2.1. I can give you 2.1, but is the property owned free and clear?
Yep.
And he was like, yes, it is. And he said that, but the seller, they want bank financing terms. And I just said, you can have both. You either have
Was
price.
that wait, what does that mean by that? They want bank financing terms means they want a higher interest, they want market interest rate, right? Okay.
Yes. So they
Yeah.
will become the bank, right? So
Yep.
they own the property free and clear. So he wants to become the bank.
Yeah. Did
But
you say that back? You can't have it both ways. Did you say
I
that?
always say that. I
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
say that because it's
Yep.
true. It's
Right.
it's a give and take relationship.
Right. Right.
If I can get bank finance, I'd rather just go to a bank. I don't want to deal with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather go to BMO or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
I have
Correct.
some banks that can get creative too, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I just said, my only incentive for you to be my bank is that, number one, for me at least, I'm having a low down payment. So for me,
Right.
10%, right?
Yep.
I won't skimp you. I'll do 10%. I want to negotiate interest rate where I cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be 7%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in terms of the term, we can negotiate. For me, I want as long as possible, but I know this seller, he wanted a short spot, like 2 years, 2 year
Yep.
balloon. So I just said, okay, he listed 2.1. I had it valued at 1.7. I'll give you 2.1, but I want to do 10% down. And you're going
Yep.
to seller carry me the rest 90% at 4% interest.
Yep.
Based on my calculation, I'm putting in about $200,000 in. Cash flow wise, so gross rents is 22K a month. Easy math. Cut that in half. 50% is your expense. 11K is your NOI.
Mm-hmm.
My debt payment was roughly around 7,000
Mm-hmm.
at 4% interest only. So no
Yep.
amortization. Keep it simple. So I'm cash flowing 4K a month.
Yep.
Times that by 12. It's about 50K. I'm putting about 200K. That's a 25% cash on cash return. That's
Mm-hmm.
an amazing deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm overpaying for the property. So how do I win? I win because I put 10% down. I'm cash flowing
Yep.
25% cash on cash. The seller wins because I'm overpaying in my mind.
Did you text? Totally. Did you text all that to them? The
I
math of
text
the like
I literally
why
just
you
texted
wanted
him
the
that.
4%? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Right.
literally texted him that, and he said that, okay, like, let me present it to the seller. And when I submitted my offer, so my offer is $2.1 million, 10% down, 4% interest, 5-year term.
Mm-hmm. So
And
this wasn't an LOI yet. This is you texting back and forth
this
with
is
them,
literally a
your
text, which
logic and
is,
reasoning.
yeah, literally a text, which is just like an LOI, essentially, right?
Yep.
And literally, when I sent that offer, I was expecting a counter. I don't expect them, because I knew out the gate, I gave him the price. He's probably happy
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
He wanted 25% down. I didn't give him that. And he
Mm-hmm.
wanted bank interest rates, which is 7%. I didn't give him that. And he wanted a 2-year term because he wants to move on fast. I didn't give him that. Right. So you negotiate. So I know I underwrote the deal. I could probably go up to about a 5% interest rate and still cash
Mm-hmm.
flow. Down payment, I don't prefer to wiggle from 10%, but okay, if you
But
wanted a
they need
higher,
to show the courtesy. They need to show the courtesy of being like, "Hey, sounds good. Can we do 15?" And yeah, like
yeah. So
sure,
I'm
say
glad you
something.
said
Say
that.
something. Yeah.
I basically submitted an offer that I knew gave him elements that he wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see if he's willing to dance. It takes two to dance. And he immediately just rejected my offer. No counter, nothing.
The broker did or the seller?
The broker told the seller, and the seller immediately
Got
just
it.
rejected it.
Got it.
So I just said, okay, my first gut reaction is, well, this guy's not flexible. He's not willing to dance.
Yep.
And he's looking for a 1031 buyer probably, or someone willing to put 50, 60, 70% down to make the deal work. Right.
Yeah.
And I get it. The deal just listed like 10 days ago. So maybe he's waiting out for that. So at this point, I just put a calendar reminder in Google
Yep.
Calendar. It's favored on Zillow. In a month
Yep.
or 2 months, I'll follow up.
Yep. Okay. So same thing happened to me this last week. So the the deal structure I'm trying to do is I have my preferred. So in LA, you just through tenant buyouts or through ADU conversion, you can increase NOI and like force appreciation. That's what I'm like kind of focused on right now. And I have there's a bridge lender, private money lender that I like that they will loan 100% of the rehab costs and they'll loan 80% of the acquisition if you put 20 down. Or what I've gotten them to say is they'll do 50% with a 50% seller carry second. And then they'll still fund the rehab. So I've been like reaching out to what I've been doing is I've been searching. I've just been going LoopNet inside my buy box and I message and I say, hey, can I see the OM? They send the OM. And then I kind of write back and go from there. And I actually need help from you on like better opening because I feel like I'm like struggling on that. But I got there wasn't there so friendly broker like went back and forth a few times. He told me the seller wasn't interested in seller financing, but then like 3 weeks later wrote me back after showing me a different property they had and said, hey, they might be interested now. Like what were you telling me about the seller carry second thing? And so I presented him the like properties listed for 1.3, and so I presented the full DSCR at 800,000. I presented the 50. I presented it as a 60-40. Private money is 60% of the deal, 40% seller carry second at 4% interest. And your math and how you were getting your cash flow is really fast and good. I've basically just been kind of trying to cheat it for these first two and be like, if it's like a 0.9 DSCR, I'm like, at least it's like some sort of like, let's just see what continues to happen. So that's how I set the 4% interest rate, is I was like, just trying to hit that like 0.9 DSCR. So seller carry, and then that came to a price of 1 million. And then I put, okay, in at 90% seller financing, and I just picked 5.8%, it's 1.2 million. So I presented all of that. Didn't text me back. My bridge lender, or the reason why I like the private money people that I'm using right now too, is just because the rep he'll just email me back very, very quickly. Like that's really helpful for me at the stage that I'm at right now, is just willing to brainstorm. And so I've just been brainstorming like ongoing email chains with them. And that's been really helpful, helping me form my strategy. And he actually checked back in on me, and he was like, hey, the loan committee, and like, I want to know, how's it going? Are you still in contact with the broker? I pinged the broker again. Broker texted me back. This is after another couple of weeks, and said, hey, he's not interested in anything below 1.25. And I write back like 3 minutes later. I'm like, kind of the same thing. I was like, okay, that can work. Like, okay, that can work. For that to work, let's do 50% seller carry at 1%. Like, and they wrote back, and because I redid the math, and I was like, okay, to keep it at that like 0.9 DSCR, like that's what it is. Then he wrote back, and he was like 1% interest, like question mark. And I was like, yep. And he was like, yeah, that won't work. And I'm like, and we kind of texted a little bit, I don't know, a couple other things that didn't really matter, just sentences. And he goes, okay, yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's penciling for you with what the seller wants or whatever. And I was like, I just said, I mean, that's all good, but let me know, like, what interest rate do they want then? Like, and he was like, oh, like probably between like 5 and 6. And I was like, okay, like, as you can see above, the 5 to 6 offer is the 1.2 million at the 90%. And I was like, but you already let me know that they want more than 10% down. He was like, yeah, they want more than 10% down. And I'm like, okay, well, then that's why. And I circled all the way back to the 1 million. I was like, that's why. Well, then honestly, my favorite is this one. Like, and that was how the chain ended for that night. And yeah, it was just, that part was interesting. So it's funny that the buy side brokers that I was talking to are like, oh, you're gonna have to search really hard to find that. But then it's kind of like the same thing on the seller side, where they're like, okay, like if all of this stuff has to be exactly correct for you, like that also is going to be like, I would think, like kind of hard to find, because I don't get the like and this is where, like, if you have 40 to 50% down, I don't understand why your choice would be to buy a value add multifamily building with it. Like, why would that be your choice for liquid money like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think some key points you hit on is, so you did the 3 offer, and the way you think and act, take facts action, you'll probably get a multifamily deal, right? Like all my students that closed, they just took consistent action like you are doing. But what I love about the 3 offer is you have so much leverage, right? Like you're just ping ponging back and forth in your offers. They're like, oh, like this is what the seller wants, but I did give you the seller wants. It's offer number 1,
Right.
right? So like you're kind of like jerking them around, and then you're like, but he wants 1.25. And in order for me to get 1.25, you have to seller carry at 1%. And well, if you want a higher interest rate, then my offer doesn't go down. So like it's just literally math. Like, and that's why I love kind of the Jedi mind trick of like the multiple offers is that I just told him, I'm like, oh, like why'd you do? Because most people are offended by 1% interest, and I know that.
Right.
And
Right.
From what I heard, the broker was projecting, because I wouldn't take 1% interest. You probably wouldn't, but the broker probably wouldn't, but never put your mindset into the seller.
Want to know
That's
what I
the
felt
key
like
thing.
pitching? I almost texted this too, but the funny part about this, and this goes back to how we talked about shopping for small businesses too, and like biz buy sell. Like, I almost wanted to pitch back and be like, okay, what about this? What if I just joint venture with the person and I just build the ADU for them? Like, how about they keep the building and I'll build the ADU for them, and that'll bump the NOI, and then we'll sell it and split it as partners. Like, because that's what's so funny about because the buy side brokers would tell me too, they're like, oh, well, if you don't have the down payment, then you just got to go find partners. And I was like, I agree. Like I've got my list of 5 to 6 guys that I'm like talking and saying like, hey, starting to do this. Are you guys interested in this? What's your timeline? I agree. All right, that's good. But also, if this guy's already sitting here with the building and wants to clearly have liquidity or like do something with it, they're basically advertising that they would like a partner. Like when you're buying something from them, you are like partnering together to make the transaction. So part of me was like, because especially with the LA, just like tenant buyouts and just ADU conversions and all that stuff, I don't understand why. Yeah, I guess just everyone is so dynamic. Like the world is so dynamic. I would
Yeah,
think that just partner with them, but then the broker doesn't make any money.
yeah, I think people are so fixed, like sellers are so fixated, like they just want to sell, right? And they just want to get rid of it, but they're not like gonna think creative out the gate because they're still holding out for hope. Wait until like your property is unsold for like 5, 6, 7 months. They're gonna remember, hey, that Brian guy, he submitted me a couple of offers and he seemed pretty flexible. So a lot of times people have to be beaten, unfortunately, into the creative offer. But I already planted the seed in their mind. And by all means, they could sell the property and then you just move on to the next one, right? And that's what I love about the multiple offers and that they're willing to play. And like I said, it's just literally math. Like I always do 1% interest because I know I can make the most aggressive offer because I just want a cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So I was hoping with my offer, like he would play ball, like, hey, no, we want a higher interest rate. And when he says higher interest rate, I'm like, well, my offer's gonna go down. So
Yep.
how do you want to make your money, right? Do you want to make
Yep.
your money through me paying more, or do you want to make your money through monthly payments of interest payments to
Right.
you?
Right.
So it's just literally math. Like the higher the interest rate, the my offer goes down. And if down payment, so if they want me to do a larger down payment, guess what? My offer's gonna go down as well. Because for me, I'm optimizing for leverage and cash flow.
Right. The cost of money. The next thing I want to do, which I did this a little bit, but I want to hit it harder, is filter by. So still do LoopNet, still doing the buy box, but then filter for old. And I haven't filtered for old yet. And actually, what's funny about LoopNet, at least like unless I'm not using it right, is the monthly filter. You have to like manually set it. You can't just be like older than 90 days or like older than. Whereas Brazil lets you do that pretty easily.
And
But so I
Redfin,
main.
yeah, Redfin lets
Yeah.
you save your
Yeah.
filters. Yeah.
Like your strategy of finding the commercial broker that's like listing on Zillow and you're just like kind of creating that mismatch of like, is that's interesting. And it creates interesting conversations. I found one that I liked that was like 7 months old and just still up on LoopNet, called the broker and just nothing, like never heard back, never heard back. And you can also tell the quality, like the quality of the pictures go down, the quality of the description goes down, the ones that just like fell all the way through the cracks. But what do you think about I just need to try harder getting them on the phone is the next thing I want to do kind of with some of these older ones.
Yeah, you just gotta hit them multiple ways, right? Call them, text them, email them. And for me, it's always the introduction. I always, my introductions, I think I told you before, I usually stance that I own apartments, right?
Yep.
So they know I'm
Yep.
serious. Like I own an apartment that's 3 miles away from yours, 26 units. So they know I have credibility. And usually I'll say, I'm going to need these documents, T12 rent roll, so I can get to my lender to underwrite it, so I can get an offer rolling. And I always mention offer because that's when brokers salivate because they want their commission
Yep.
checks, right?
Yep.
And I want to give you your commission check, but we have to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really that persistence. And honestly, like the deal that you see on LoopNet or Zillow isn't probably the deal I'm going to buy from the broker. It's the deal that they bring you later because they know what type of investor you are. So now
Right.
this guy, he owns 6 listings, all 20 to 40 units. So I know that he's a guy that gets small apartment complexes in Oklahoma City that I'm targeting, but most of them are turnkey. So they're already renovated. I'm paying top of market price or above market price. So I'm okay with that as long as it cash flows and I don't have to do any work. It's more passive,
Mm-hmm.
right? So low
Mm-hmm.
money down, 200K down, cash flow 3 to 4K a month. I don't have to do much work. Hey, I'm not going to complain, right? Just the terms. So now I already got in his mind because I made 2 offers now. One offer was egregiously low, didn't like it. Another offer, hey, I gave you the price. I gave you the price, but he didn't like my terms. So now when he has another, I texted him like, hey, because he asked me like, hey, do you have any other properties that we can use as collateral? Because they're nervous. And I was like, yeah, I have plenty of properties that you can use, you can take as if that makes you more comfortable, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Banks do that anyways. I don't care. If that makes you comfortable, by all means, if you want to see my 26 unit, you can drive there. You can talk to my property manager. right? Like if you want to build trust, I'm some stranger in California. I get it. You don't trust me yet. That's why you probably rejected
Yep.
my offer. So, but with the broker, he knows how I think now. So I just said, hey, like if you're willing to play creative, I can get you your price. If you're not willing to go creative and you want straight sell, well, my offer is probably gonna be too low.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not the
Yeah.
type to put 30, 40, 50% down. That's not why I'm doing real estate, right? I want to
No.
leverage and get in. I want to buy a deal of no money down if possible, right? But that's why I do real estate. And I'm okay to wait for that deal because it will come. And
Yeah.
eventually people know how you think and operate. And they just need to know that we are making offers, right? Like you've made multiple offers. I've made multiple offers for the same deal. So they
Yeah.
know, hey, situation changed. We're willing to play ball, right?
Yeah.
But just a matter, is the seller willing to play ball and dance? And,
Yeah.
the answer was no. And, it's okay. Like you said, just move on, follow up, or maybe they'll reach out
And
to you
that's,
later.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I liked what you said last time about, yeah, just you're building your reputation of like, this is the way I operate, this is the way I operate. So if you bring me things, I'll run it through the system and I'll send you a number. The for the first like 3 to 4 reach outs that I did, I was doing the thing where I was like taking their gross number and then I was putting my own expense ratio on it, my vacancy ratio on it, and I was kind of beating up their NOI number because I was asking for the OM, and then I would beat up their NOI with my slightly reduced price. But what I started doing that progressed the conversation farther, where I at least made it to this stage of talking about the 3 offers, was kind of the way that you can just be so nonchalant and be like, okay, sweet, that's your price. Then like, this is the terms. I almost do that with the NOI now, where I'm like, all right, like, yeah, I just looked at your marketing document. I call them now and I'm like, hey, the building looks awesome. Like, this looks great. Like, everything about it looks awesome. Like, and so based on this NOI, like, and then I just take their NOI and then run it through the filters, like, of the 3 and try to hit that, like, some sort of DSCR that would be, like, somehow manageable.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of OMs myself and my students, and like, well, they leave a lot of stuff out. Like sometimes they leave property tax out. I've seen they leave
Yeah.
insurance out. It's like hilarious. I'm like, dude, this is like a
Yeah.
professional brokerage company, and you left out insurance. Like on the 28 unit that I offered that he wanted 2.1 million on, they calculated NOI. It had no insurance in there. I'm like, dude, of course I might need insurance on this deal unless I'm buying
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
like kind of like laughable to me that like they're presenting this document and these are like kind of real estate professionals and
Right.
workers and they're missing something so basic as insurance. And I know because I own a property there, my insurance is probably gonna be about maybe 10 to 12K if I'm lucky, if I can get
Yeah.
the cheaper one, or it's gonna be 30, 40K if it's like not in good condition and it's older,
Yeah.
then I'm paying more. So like it's just so funny. And I tell them that I'm like, he's like, well, what cap rate are you using? Like here's your NOI that you have listed on your OM, what cap rate you're using because based on this NOI and this purchase price, this is a 5 cap. Is Oklahoma City a 5 cap market? I don't think so. So what
Yeah.
cap rate are you using, right? And they're like,
And what do they
oh,
say?
yeah, they'll
Yeah.
just be like, oh, well, that's just what the seller wants. And I'm just like, well, the seller can want it, but the market dictates the sales
Yeah.
price. So it's just kind of
Right.
funny how you're just like throwing obvious things to somebody and you're kind of like teaching them as you do down deals. So that's why I've always done off market, to be honest, because I just want to go direct to this. Like if you're the seller, Brian, I want to talk to you directly. We can build
Yeah.
trust and I want to see if we can dance because the 2 deals I took down, they're willing to dance, right? They were willing to dance and they were willing to give and take, right? We're reciprocal by nature. That's the human nature. That's why I do the 3 offer method. It's an ultimate negotiation tactic hack, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I'm showing that I'm flexible, I'm reciprocal, and let's work together. Hey, you told me this new piece of information. I'm going to pivot my offer based on what you heard. You may like one part of it, but you may not like the other part of it. And then I'm just like, well, what do you care for? Do you want price? Do you want terms? Yeah, both. So it's kind of interesting when you deal with sellers and like you said, a lot of sellers aren't sophisticated as you think they are. Like, what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for price, or do you just want to get your money and move on, right?
Right.
And so like I had 2 sellers, they just want their money and moved on. So I gave them a conventional offer that was lower. If they want a
Yep.
price, we can do creative financing. I'll pay you more, but I'm gonna pick my terms.
Yeah. What's your opinion about like the 2 to 4 unit space?
Yeah, so like if I had the option of like I started off buying like 4 single family homes in California and
Hmm.
because duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes were not accessible. But had I had the option to house hack those properties when I was in my late 20s, I would have loved to buy like a fourplex buy another
Yeah.
5-10% down, live in one unit, rent out the other three, or they're already rented
Yeah.
already. If you have existing tenants, that helps your debt to income ratio because they factor
Hmm.
that income in. And
Hmm.
then you move out of there, rent out that unit, and then go house hack another fourplex.
Yeah.
So you still get your privacy. You learn how
Yeah.
to be a little landlord. And if you do that 4 times fourplexes, that's 16 units.
Right.
I would have loved
Right.
to do that. I actually have one student who's actually doing that in Vegas. So
Awesome.
like
Awesome.
and I just told him, dude, like you just do this 4 times. You buy one fourplex every 2 years. In 10 years, you have 16 units in Vegas.
Yeah.
And, you're pretty set. So I do like it. But, for me, I'm just going based on like NOI now. And, obviously
Yeah.
like, when you buy 2 to 4 units, your market has to have it. I just haven't seen it. And
Yeah.
the values aren't as good as I would like. So at that point, I'd rather just go to like, Oklahoma and buy like, 20 to like 40 unit apartment complexes. So I think I definitely would have started off had I had the opportunity. I was definitely
Yeah.
looking at them when I was house hacking, but there's so few of them, at least in California.
Yeah.
But if you go to other areas, and there's plenty of them, yeah, I would do it all day. I would do that for 10 loans. If you do 10
Yep.
conventional loans, W2 job times 10 fourplex, that's 40 units. I
Yeah.
mean, that's all you don't even need to go to multifamily potentially if that's your strategy and you have those available.
What type of deal would it take for you to want to put 40% down? Like pull out of other like your index funds and do 40% down. Is there anything?
Yeah. Great question. So I obviously have a lot of properties of equity in it, right? Which is what you're alluding to. So I could either do a cash out refinance on my 26 unit, which I doubled the value in to pull out money, or I could sell an apartment, single family home, 1031 exchange it. For me, it'd have to be another screaming deal, just like my 26 unit, where I know I could basically buy it, come in, renovate it, raise the rents, and then essentially double the value, and then not necessarily cash out refinance because I want to live off that cash flow, for example,
Hmm.
right? And then basically have another cash flowing property that forced a lot of appreciation on. So if I can get that,
Right.
I would do that 40% down, but
Well,
I'm
okay.
buying it right usually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, and I'm so that makes sense. Taking out equity of your other apartment buildings to put down 40% on that one to increase. So then your net equity on your portfolio is still actually going up. You're just shuffling around like where it is. What would it take for you to pull it from the stock market? Like pull it from index funds, or pull it from cash in the high yield savings account to just put it in.
Yeah, that's a, like for
Because
me,
that's what I felt like these buy side. The reason I'm asking is because that's what I'm trying to get in the mindset of the like that the buy side. At least just these two guys I talked to of like they just thought I just like came out of nowhere of like, hey guys, like can I get your help to like plunk this down somewhere like and do this? I don't get that.
yeah, like for me, when because I have like a bunch of index funds, like about 20% of my net worth is probably index funds between 401k and then like, Vanguard brokerage accounts. Like for me, the moment I put money in there, I kind of view it as like it's gone for some reason. But for me, it's just nice to have liquidity, and I do have a line of credit against it in case I need. So for me, I have two options. I can either just sell my stocks and then pay the capital gains tax, long-term capital gains tax, and use that for my down payment or my renovation. Or if I don't mind more leverage, I could take a line of credit against my stock portfolio to use that to buy a property, but that property better cash flow well enough to for sure cover that
Yeah,
loan payment as well. And so
yeah,
for me, I try not to dip into it, but if it is like an amazing deal, I would consider selling it. But what I would do is if I am cash flowing, I'd probably take that cash flow and reinvest it back into like the stocks to get me to
sure.
that good split. So for me, I kind of like liquidity because that's what kind of helps me retire. If you want to retire early, which is my goal, you do need like more in brokerage accounts and more liquid to live off that 4%, quote unquote 4% rule. Real estate does cash flow, right? But it is a little bit more variable, even if it's paid off, right? Even if a house is paid off, we talked about this before, it's considered a bond almost, right? Like you're getting, if it's a paid off house, you get your cash flow, could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% return on your money, which is a good bond. But even with that, like, you're always gonna have a roof that needs to be replaced, some plumbing issues. tenant turnover, maybe a tenant stops paying you. So for me, I'm definitely like 80% of my net worth in real estate, 20 is stocks. But I think it would take a really, like I said, another 26 unit apartment complex where I know I can basically come in and I know I'm buying it right, because for me to have a screaming deal, I'm buying it half off. Like
Yeah.
literally, I'm buying it plus renovation, which is about 10K per door. So let's just call it 100K. So whatever I'm buying at plus 200K, that's half of the value of the ARV. So
Yeah.
that's a screaming deal, right?
Yep.
And I got that with my 26 unit, for better, for worse, right? I'm not seeing
And
that
which
again.
offer did they take of the three? Which offer did they take?
So for that one, I actually, for my first apartment, I didn't do my 3 offer. I didn't know about my 3 offer method, right? That's how green I was. So I just offered conventional first, but I did know about creative financing. So like, but I just came out with a conventional offer first. And then if you were to reject it outright, I'll just be like, hey, do you want this free and clear? Like, do you want to, get creative here?
Got it.
So that was my approach back then. But literally, I just made an offer, and he just accepted my offer, my first offer, which was
That's
like,
awesome.
which was my low ball offer, right?
Yeah.
So like, and then, but like he was willing to negotiate, even though I know I got a great deal. I remember I asked for seller repair credit. So I did a full inspection, and they had a bunch of electrical panels which were recalled, which is a fire hazard. The roof needs to
Yep.
be replaced. There are holes in the driveways. And I just said, hey, like I got a quote from my general contractor. These are safety hazards. I think it's going to cost me 120K to fix all this. So what was I trying to do? Well, my down payment was 120K. I asked for 120K in seller repair credit. So in a sick way, what is that? That's a zero down deal.
Zero down. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a zero down deal. But
Yeah.
he just said, oh, well, the property is as is.
Yep.
And even if he gave me zero, I would have still bought the deal.
Mm.
But he ended up giving me half. He just said, hey, add
Nice.
all this. What's really, really critical? And I just said, you know what? Let me ask my property manager. Let me see what they think. So it's not my opinion. And they said, well, the roof is end of life. So it's going to be hard for me to get insurance on this deal. And I need insurance to have my lender finance this.
And to close. Yeah. To close.
To close, yeah. And then number two is the recalled electric panels. Why are they recalled? Because it's a fire hazard. What does insurance fear? Fires. So I said, I need to get those fixed, right? So you need to give me seller repair credit, and I will allocate that money to fix this, right? So he ended up giving me 60K, so I cut my down payment in half. So I ended up putting down only like 12% down to get a multifamily deal.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
even if I went the conventional route, I would still do that, right? Because I want to get my down payment as low as possible. So I always ask for seller repair credit, and I gave him the quotes too. I literally gave him the quote, like, hey, like this is my quote to fix the roof.
Yeah.
I'm not making crap up. This is a legit quote.
Yep.
You can call them and verify it. That's the quote. So like, I'm not pulling a rabbit out of my hat and just trying to fleece you.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
That's cool. What do you think about? I'm just talking more about the like opening lines. Like, so filter on the site when you reach out to the broker, you ask for the T12 and the rent roll. What do you think about? Do you ever just send? I guess like what do you? It's not a good strategy to just cold cold out the gate, just send the three offers. Like if I'm just scrolling LoopNet, looking at the OM, I just take the NOI off the OM, just run the thing, and so I'm trying to think like how basically the classic question of the quality versus quantity, I guess, is like what I'm asking.
Yeah, for me, I usually know what my offer is, but I don't come out the gate in my first text, my first contact. It's more of just
Yeah.
to understand the situation and to kind of understand, like, okay, do they own it free and clear? Do they have a lot of equity in it? Why are they selling? What's their motivation? All that stuff, right? But I already
Do
know
you
what the
ask
offer.
that?
I do. Like, I actually
Yeah.
have a list of like 10 to 12 questions that I ask if I were to talk to the seller directly. And it's just to
Yeah.
build trust and to understand their situation so that I can craft an offer based on what they told me, right? And then I will explain to them why I created my offer this way. I'm like, oh, it just seemed like you were focused on retirement. You wanted a high purchase price or sales price, and you want a monthly cash flow still. So it sounded to me like you want to create financing. That's why I made this offer for you, right? So like, I'm gonna explain to them why I did this offer. But honestly, my first text is just like, hey, let me see your T12. Let me see your rent roll. I establish I have an apartment. I establish I'm gonna make an offer. Email me this. And I already know my offer though, but I just want to see the T12 to validate my offer. And then I get the T12, and then like the next day or within an hour, here's my offer.
Yeah.
Here are my 3 offers,
Yeah.
right? And then, hey, let's talk about it. Or I just say, hey, do any of these offers appeal to the seller at all? Before Or I'll even say like, here are my 3 offers. Do you want me to draft an LOI, or are they just too far off that we don't want to waste each other's time? So like
Yeah.
I'm just very like cut to the chase,
Yep.
and it might turn off a lot of brokers. But like, hey, if you find the right, like if this broker that I talk to pans out, he's very direct. He's gonna bring me deals all day.
Agreed. That seems like, well, and again, because you're already targeting a certain geography, like he has a network in that area, like as is already established because you saw the listing. So
When
yeah,
he gets a pocket new
that's a good
listing,
contact.
he's gonna bring it over to me first, and he knows I'll make an offer. I already made 2 offers on 2 of his properties, right? And I even said, do you have any more? You have 6 listings. You tell me. You know how I think. Can one of the sellers want to work with me, right? And now
Yeah.
he knows I can get an offer out, and he gets a quick
And
close.
what do you say to that so far? He did like did none of them pop to mind?
No, he didn't like respond yet. Maybe he's like thinking, but like I
Yeah.
did even tell him about the kind of the 60 the 50-40-10 loan, right? With the
Yeah.
seller carry
Yeah.
second. And I pitched that too. I said, dude, look, you only need to carry 40%. I can give you a higher offer price. Sure, it's gonna be 1%. If you want higher, my offer's gonna be lower. But if you
Hmm.
want the higher price, it's 1%.
Hmm.
And because my 50% loan is going to be higher, so I want my blended interest rate to be lower, so I can make a
Right.
higher offer. And then I said, so the seller gets 60% of the money, and they can move on, do whatever they want, right?
Yep.
They carry me 40, and I'll just pay them a little interest on the money, right? And then it's a win-win situation. You get a little higher price, I get 10% down, I get a good
The
deal that cash flows. That's
the
it.
other reason why the 1% doesn't matter, like it only matters, it's not real money. It's trapped equity. They don't have the option to move it into a bank account because they don't have a deal yet. So there is not a market of 5 to 6% interest rate on that money because that money's not real. Like
Yeah,
it's trapped equity.
yeah, it's basically trapped equity, and then you're paying,
Yeah.
you're deferring your capital gains tax, right? You're only paying long-term capital gains tax on the 60% that you get plus my interest payment, right? So like that's what I understand. Like you can slowly do this, and like just give me like obviously I want minimum 5 years so I can do my thing, right? Wait for interest rates to lower. Maybe I can do some renovations, raise the NOI, increase the income, lower the expense, right? And then, but if like for example the seller he wants a 2-year balloon, which is too short for me. So what I
Right.
do, and this is the hack, I will say, hey, I will take your 2-year term, but I want an auto extension if I cannot get a loan on this in 2 years.
Yes.
And most
So,
sellers are overconfident in their purchase price. So they
yeah.
always will
Yeah.
bite on that, and that protects
Yes.
you.
Yes, that's a good one. Okay, I was just going to ask you this too. So then when I forgot the last half sentence that I left my guy with. So we talked about the interest rate, talked about the price, circled all the way back to the middle, and I was like, okay, sweet. Well, that's the reason why I offered the 1 million at 4%, like with the 4% interest rate. That one's honestly my favorite. And I was like, if I just kind of left it open ended. I was like, maybe, look, the plan is to run the business plan, build the ADU, bump the NOI, and cash out, refinance this, and clear them out. And maybe if we do that, maybe there's a performance bonus, and they can collect a little bit more money, like on top or whatever. Because it is, yeah. What do you think about that? Have you ever heard of that, or like writing kind of like you're kind of like making them like a partner in the profit, like if yours honestly is more better than that. But how would you? Okay, so that's the way you jujitsu. That one last thing about the term or the length. Do you have any other like one last piece of like the middle offer is like basically almost working, but they just want another 50K? Like, what would you do?
Yeah, actually, I almost sold my mobile home park with that way. So like my mobile
Okay.
home park, I basically put in $600,000 of my own money in the deal. So I was actually at one point trying to find a partner where I said, hey, you put in another 600. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
execute this value added strategy. So now we're 50-50 partners because you put in
Yep.
600, I put in 600, right? We're going to execute this strategy. And then hopefully by the end, the value is this. And then we can do either a cash out refinance, we get our money back 50-50, right? Or we sell this and we split the profits 50-50.
Yeah.
So that always is an option. For me personally, I don't like to partner ideally if I don't have to.
Yeah.
But if I'm that desperate, which I was for my mobile home park, like it was on the table for me. I just couldn't find someone to play ball, right? But like for
Yep.
me, I just wanted to get, but my money ended up being trapped anyways. The idea of seller carry second, right? So whatever
Yeah.
money I put in the deal, most of it was still trapped in the deal, collecting 5% interest on the money. But it is a creative strategy. But I think that one takes a lot of back and forth to be like the last option to make this even work at all. Usually, maybe you're better off like you can pitch it and then just follow up after that, because it's hard to like, because partnerships, it could be scary, especially if you don't know each other that well yet.
For sure. That's always because when I went on a few tours for like corner stores on like off Biz Buy Sell and stuff, that I felt like that every store I went into, you could just tell that it was just old owner, like isn't just doing the low hanging fruit of just getting a better point of sale, like making the store look cleaner, I was just like, dude, I'd love to just help this guy out. Like this is just an interesting thing. I'd love to just help him out. And I'm getting that same feeling again a little bit texting the broker sometimes of like, this building's honestly awesome. Like I feel bad that they aren't excited about this because it's cool.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And like you said, like you notice in this whole theme of this conversation that we're having is how flexible we are with offers. Like basically our mindset is how can we make this work and make it a win-win situation, if you got one theme out of our conversation today. So you have to have that mindset. Like I said, it takes two to tango, right? Like you need a motivated buyer and a motivated seller. We are motivated buyers, right? I'm motivated for any deal at the right price, right? Or the right terms. I'll make it like 2.1 million. I don't care. I'm overpaying by 400 because I'm cash flowing, whatever, $4,000 a month. So that's kind of really my goal and the objective, right? So like we are one part of the equation, but we need the other person to bite, and it's gonna take a bunch of no's, right? But what's beautiful about multifamily, and you know this, you just need one deal. One deal.
Yeah.
One deal is all it takes. My 26 unit, I get another one. I probably don't need to work ever again, right? If I had two, like my 26 and they're paid off, I don't need to do anything. So that's what's kind of crazy about multifamily, and that's what makes me okay with putting up with this, the suck and the shit, right? Dealing with these people. Like I said, why would you not give me a counter offer on my offer, right? Like by all accounts, I should have gotten a counter offer. So I know they're not reasonable or too stubborn, and I can't make a good deal happen with someone like that, but maybe they'll come around later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it will. That part, and it's interesting. It's genuinely interesting. Like it's interesting problem solving.
Yeah, and that's why I share my journey. Like I'm literally acting, like literally I was doing this earlier today. And I just got my text message, and like this is like real time, like me making an offer, me getting rejected, and then my mindset about why the offer was rejected or why I shouldn't have been rejected. So that's why I'm like documenting my whole journey and sharing that.
Oh, I love it. It's been super helpful. Loved finding the channel. So
yeah. So any kind of final thoughts? I know we're kind of hitting on time here, and love these conversations.
That's it, man. That's what I want to talk about. Just the offer. It's funny that the same thing happened this week. My next thing, I'm gonna hit these old loop and see what happens.
Yeah, and I like that. Like I said, the point of the LoopNet deal is to know the broker and build that relationship. If you do that, you're successful, right? Like literally, you're successful if you built trust with that broker. But yeah, next time it's interesting. So I'll kind of leave this as a cliffhanger for the next one. So my Bitcoin video that I posted about the 0.1 did pretty well, actually. Got about 6,000, which is good for my channel. But it was interesting hearing that half the people were shitting on me because they said that I basically bought FBTC, which is like buying a car without the keys, right? And then the other half were just like, oh, it's a good start. You get your feet wet, get a little exposure. So let's definitely deep dive into that maybe on the next one.
100%.
Talk on.
Yes.
But just leaving that little cliffhanger.
Yeah, no, there's the cliffhanger. And if people are at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas, I'm speaking on a FIRE panel about like what FIRE influencers get wrong about Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I've been loving your Bitcoin videos.
Yeah, all right, Brian. Thank you everyone for hopping on. Like you said, if you're interested in the mentorship, just click the description down below. You'll see my link tree from there. And then from there, you can send me an email if you have questions about it. But otherwise, please let me know what questions you have. We'd love to answer your questions and hope to see you next one. Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys.